Let's talk about chickens. I have listened to some of your past speeches, and after listening to it, I just don't touch chicken that much, if not anymore, unless I get it from your store. What is the public not realizing about chicken meat when they buy it?
So 60% of meat consumed in America is chicken. It has become the most popular meat. It's also the most radical shift in our consumption patterns in the past century. Chicken used to be the least frequent meat consumed because it was incredibly expensive, right? It's delicious, it's quick to cook.
Yeah.
But it used to be very expensive because it used to take, the average chicken sold in America in the 1940s and 50s was over 50 weeks at slaughter. The chickens that we eat today that are available in like Trader Joe's or something, those are 2.5 weeks at slaughter.
So from
Belcampo,
1 year to 2 weeks?
yeah. At
Holy
Belcampo,
cow.
we can get is like 8 to 10 weeks for our chickens that are outdoors and eating natural grass. Now, keep in mind, they don't eat, this is a really key thing to know. And people that I know that are very well educated in nutrition make this mistake where they say that chickens, they need to have a high diet and like pasture is about their nutrition. And chickens naturally will always prefer to eat grain, right?
Okay.
If they're omnivores, they're monogastrics. Cows, for example, if you put grain out at pasture, they usually have to be kind of forced to eat it and try it. They don't naturally gravitate towards it. They'll gravitate towards grass that has seed pods on it, but they don't want to eat grain. They want
Okay.
green grass and
I
walk
didn't
around.
know that.
They
Okay.
evolved to eat that. Pigs and chickens, if you put them out in a green grassy field, lots of bugs and stuff, the maximum amount of their calories that they'll get from the grass and the bugs is like 10%. So that's like why it's even more shocking, because whereas in grass-fed and finished cattle, I can say, oh yeah, our system and all the regenerative farms out there, it's a radically different diet. It's like Fritos versus chard. In chicken, it's kind of scarier because they're eating grain in our system and they're eating grain in everybody's system. And so what's the delta? Like, how is that so different? How is it from even our system where they're eating grain, it's 10 weeks, and their system where they're eating grain, it's 2 weeks? That's even more frightening because it's like you're changing fewer variables, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that change happens is in the stressfulness of the environment. So it's a very confined environment. They have just a few inches to move around in. The animals are actually under so much stress that they will peck each other to death if they're allowed to keep their beaks. So their beaks are cut off and they're fed a liquid food to avoid them having. Now, even on Belcampo's farm, there's always like one or two chickens that are missing a patch of feathers. You'll see that even if you have backyard chickens, it's a
Right.
hierarchy in the bird flock, and
Yeah,
they'll
it's
pick at.
nature. It's basically
Yeah,
nature.
it's like a run to the litter. But so that thing that we're in our operation, there's one that's like kind of getting to eat last and getting a little bit more beat up. In the operations that are confined, that is all heightened, so they actually will kill each other. And they, despite being debeaked, many of them are still like picking at each other and at themselves enough that they've lost a lot of their feathers. They're kept in the dark, and the toxicity in the hoop houses is so high. This is a study from the Pew Charitable Trust, which did a really like watershed analysis of CAFOs, of confined animal operations, a couple of years back. They showed that in these confinement animal hoop houses, that if the ventilation systems break, that all humans and animals have to be vacated within 9 minutes because the levels of toxicity in the air are so heavy that without the ventilation system, everything living in the hoop house will be dead within 9 minutes.
I don't know how to answer that. That's like chickens will
Imagine.
die. There's no way you could pull everybody
And
out in 9 minutes.
also any humans, any workers in there will die, right? And it's not enough to open the doors. Like, it's like they need these massive ventilations. So that gives you a sense of like the level of nitrogen, ammonia, and off-gassing and everything that's happening in there. So it's that environment. So basically it's a super stressful environment. The animals are fed a dose of antibiotics in their food. Even when they're saying them on the package, it'll say if it says no antibiotics, and then it'll be caveated, like in Tyson was saying, unless the animals are sick. Well, it's been documented. There's a great book all about this called The Meat Racket that you should check out.
Okay.
That Tyson has, veterinarians on payroll who will attest to the risk of flocks getting sick. And so all the animals are given them as if they're about to have an epidemic, right? So they're
Oh, so it's a loophole they're playing through. Oh, I see now.
So they're constantly saying, yes, these animals are right on the cusp of getting sick. This whole hoop house is on the cusp of getting sick, right? So they'll say that kind of thing. And what happens? Obviously, they're able to then put the antibiotics into their food. And the antibiotics, in a totally isolated double-blind study, antibiotics have been shown by in and of themselves to increase rate of weight gain by 1.5 times. So that's one big factor right there. And then the other factors are environmental. It's the same thing too. I think about it as like, imagine like the times in your life when you're not eating well, you're not getting your morning sunshine, you're under feeling some social stress, or you're competing for the attention of a person, or you're not being recognized at work, or, like those are the moments when we gain weight, when we develop kind of compulsive behavior, where we have obsessive thought. Like, so I don't know if the chickens are like OCD or having obsessive thought, but like there's definitely some parallels to learn from our human experience, where you'd say, yeah, if you were in that situation, you'd gain 30 pounds in a week too.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be. It makes no sense. I mean, I'm still shocked. I mean, because look, I'm just a consumer buying meat that the beaks are chopped off and they're given liquid diet. That will mess with their head no matter what. I mean, I'm not a veterinarian. I don't have a science degree, but yeah, just thinking about that, well, it'll mess with their head.